Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. One person is dead and another in critical condition after being thrown from a sightseeing gondola in Quebec. Plus, a second firefighter is killed as the country battles its worst season of wildfires on record. And the North American Indigenous Games hold their opening ceremonies in Halifax, with the Prime Minister getting booed.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks for joining us. The 2023 North American Indigenous Games held their opening ceremonies in Halifax, Nova Scotia over the weekend, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau receiving a hail of booing from those in attendance. The Games showcased the best Indigenous talent in 16 sports, with athletes ranging in age from 13 to 19 years old. Close to 5,000 athletes, coaches, and team staff from over 750 Indigenous nations, including right here in Southern Alberta region, are connecting through the power of sport and culture, and BCN's Micah Quinn has more.
We have been waiting for this moment. We've been waiting for this moment a long time.
It likely wasn't the reaction Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was expecting as he spoke to the crowd for the opening ceremonies of the 2023 North American Indigenous Games. Tanya Whipple, the communication manager for the Lethbridge Sport Council, says a large delegation of Indigenous athletes from the Southern Alberta region are competing in the Games.
There are 50 athletes plus the support staff, the coaches and the managers who are attending as well. In my opinion, that's a fantastic number and a great representation for Southern Alberta. We have athletes participating in a number of sports, basketball, baseball, athletics, lacrosse, badminton. And so lots of the different sports are being represented for sure by the Games. We do have we have 6 coaches attending all together. 3 of them actually have a close connection with the Sport Council. So Sean, who works for us, he is a wrestling coach and he's there. Martin, who also works for us, is a badminton coach there. And Chad Chief Moon is a board member for the Lethbridge Sport Council, and he's there coaching lacrosse as well. And his son also is on the lacrosse team.
According to staff with the Games, the hosting of the event is estimated to generate $19.8 billion in new money for the province of Nova Scotia. George Tex Marshall, the president of the 2023 Games, told the crowd to never underestimate the power of sport.
We have a term as Mi'kmaq people, and it's quite simply called geskumzit, which loosely translates to performing above your capabilities in a spiritual sense. So what I would say to you is you do not need to perform above your capabilities. All you need to do is strive for your best.
The Games run until July 23rd, and you can view them online by visiting the 2023 North American Indigenous Games website. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
An Ontario woman in her 50s remains in critical condition after being thrown from a sightseeing gondola at the Mount Tremblant Resort in Quebec. Sunday's incident also killed 50-year-old Sheldon Johnson of Ontario. Quebec Provincial Police say both victims were ejected from the gondola when their cable car struck a drilling machine. It's still unclear why the machine was operating near a moving gondola, and the investigation is ongoing. One more person has died from injuries resulting from the June 15th bus crash in Manitoba, bringing the total to 17. 5 people are still being treated in hospital more than a month after a minibus carrying seniors crashed with a semi-trailer truck on the Trans-Canada Highway between Dauphin and Carberry. The latest fatality was a 79-year-old woman who died from her injuries over the weekend. A Manitoba judge approved an injunction against a blockade at a Winnipeg landfill Friday, but protesters at the site remained over the weekend as the deadline passed. The protesters are demanding a search of landfills for the remains of Indigenous women. With around 380 wildfires burning in British Columbia, the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre says the province has the greatest number of blazes across the country. The number of highly visible, threatening, or potentially damaging blazes surpassed 20 over the weekend, and there are more than 70 wildfire-related evacuation alerts. Environment Canada continues to warn of smoky skies and reduced visibility throughout central and eastern BC. And in related news, the BC Wildfire Service has posted a tribute to Devin Gale, the firefighter who died on the job last week, saying hearts are broken in the tight-knit community. The 19-year-old member of a crew based in Revelstoke died after being struck by a falling tree last week. In a statement from Gale's family, she's described as a loving daughter and sister who was training to become a nurse. And a second firefighter has been killed as the country battles its worst season of wildfires on record. The person who has not yet been named died from injuries sustained while fighting a fire near Fort Liard in the Northwest Territories on Saturday. So much devastation that these wildfires are causing, and Alberta's seen its share of it as well. Fortunately, today there's only 119 burning, and the majority of them are under control. As for the heat, though, that's another story. Barnwell, Alberta took up the top position for the hot spot in Canada earlier this afternoon at 34 degrees. And here in Lethbridge, we exceeded our daily high of 30 and shot up to 33 degrees by early afternoon. Angela Stewart is in now with a brief update on how things are looking. Angela, not a lot of smoke out there, thankfully, but hot and windy.
Yeah, Jeanette, you hit it right on the nose with that one. It was very warm today, a scorcher like you mentioned. And then that heat is also going to be sticking around starting tomorrow and then for the rest of the week. As for tonight, there is a chance of showers with a risk of a thunderstorm. We can expect about a 30% chance of rain tonight, sitting at a low of 14 degrees. And then tomorrow, lots of sunshine. That heat, like I mentioned, hazy conditions, and then shooting up to 28 for tomorrow, and then a low of 9 degrees for the evening. As for how the rest of the week is shaping up, we'll have all those details coming up later in the show.
Thanks so much, Angela. Look forward to that. Well, we may think it's hot here, but in the southwestern U.S., it's actually experiencing a historic heat wave. Death Valley, California recorded high temperatures of 132 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 55 to 56 degrees Celsius. Some of the hottest temperatures ever recorded on Earth, and some tourists, as you can see them there on your screen, they even thought that it would be funny to pose bundled up in coats and hats. And I used to live in the desert, so I have experienced similar temperatures to that. Here in Alberta, the former Alberta Justice Minister has been issued a citation from the Law Society of Alberta. Casey Madu will have to undergo a hearing for allegedly engaging in conduct that undermined respect for the administration of justice. It stems from an incident in March of 2021 when Madu was issued a distracted driving ticket in Edmonton. Madu told media that he called the Edmonton police chief to ensure that he was not being racially profiled or singled out for surveillance, given his position, but he says that he did not ask the chief to waive the ticket. Madu was stripped of his ministerial position in January of 2022, and the Law Society says that such conduct is deserving of a sanction, but no date is yet scheduled for the hearing. Lethbridge police continue their investigation into a sudden death that took place Friday. Officials say a man's body was found inside a storage shed early in the day on July 14th at the McDonald's located on University Drive. Police say workers from a restoration company found the man inside the shed. The shed had been previously damaged in a fire in early July, and the workers had gone to the storage area to provide remediation services. The man's body was taken to the medical examiner's office in Calgary, where a full autopsy will be done to determine the cause of death. The circumstances surrounding the death remain under investigation, and no further information will be released until the autopsy is complete. And we'll continue to update the story when more details become available. In a separate incident, Lethbridge police are seeking witnesses and dash cam video in connection with the assault of a man on July 12th. Just before 10 p.m. that evening, police received a call that 3 people were assaulting a man at the intersection of 13th Street and 3rd Avenue North. A 47-year-old man sustained blunt force trauma injuries and was later transported to Calgary. Police are asking anyone who may have witnessed the July 12th assault or was driving in the area between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. to come forward, and you can call the number on your screen there. Well, Cypress County has become the latest region to declare an agricultural state of disaster. The county joins Vulcan, Stettler, Foothills, and Paintereth as the latest casualties. Staff with Cypress County say the situation is dire for farmers in the area, and this is the 3rd year in a row that they have had to declare an ag disaster.
Our native grasses didn't even really come out of dormancy, so there's limited feed for animals, and hay and crops and that sort of thing are struggling. You know, some we hear the seed was planted in the spring, obviously, but there was no moisture to even germinate the seed. So inputs are high, and when it doesn't grow, obviously there's nothing to harvest, and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a struggle here for people for sure.
Officials with the county told us estimated soil moisture in the region compared to the long-term normal is rated moderately low to as low as it's been in over 50 years. Wow. The Calgary Stampede has wrapped up for another year, and officials with the 10-day festival say the numbers show this was the 2nd largest stampede in history. The latest numbers for official attendance this year was just over 1,384,000 people to walk through the gates. The highest number in history was just over 1.4 million, set back in 2012. And speaking of the Stampede, some sad news. A horse has had to be euthanized after suffering an injury during a chuck wagon race. The Calgary Stampede says in an emailed statement that a horse on Chris Moll's team sustained an injury during the 7th heat of the chuck wagon races on Friday. A spectator who was in the grandstand and witnessed the incident says the horse appeared to fall after the chuck wagon had crossed the finish line. Last year, the Stampede said that it brought in new safety measures for horses, which include reducing the number of wagons to 3 from 4 on the track for each heat. The Street Wheelers held their 45th annual Street Machine Weekend this past Saturday and Sunday. An official says that they had a big turnout with 85 cars showing up for their 100-foot drag. Over 3,000 spectators showed up in the grandstand area to watch the vehicles race. And as for the show and shine, over 400 cars were on display in Galton Gardens.
It's a great success. First of all, we started we were lucky if we got 50, 60 cars back in the first few years we did it. And now, like say, we're up to over 600 or close to 600 cars for the weekend. So it's a great feeling success, what accomplished with everybody's help.
Herber says they look forward to bringing the event back next year. The Alberta government has sent 2 delegates to a regional economic summit in the U.S. to promote the province's priorities. MLAs Shane Getson and Garth Roswell are set to be in Boise, Idaho until July the 20th for the Pacific Northwest Economic Region Annual Summit. The government says that they will advocate for issues of particular importance to Albertans, build relationships to support Alberta's interests, and further trade and investment ties with the U.S. The summit brings together legislative, government, and private sector leaders from several Northwest U.S. states, as well as Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, Yukon, and the Northwest Territories to advance policies that promote the region's economies. Well, south of the border, New York City named its very first Hispanic police commissioner. Edward Caban was sworn in today by New York's Mayor Eric Adams.
Now, it's not lost on me that today's announcement is also a first. Given how many great leaders of Hispanic descent have come before me in the NYPD, to be the first Hispanic police commissioner is an honor of the highest measure. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am humbled to be on your team, to have your trust and support. and to lead the greatest police department on the globe.
A search resumed Monday for a 9-month-old boy and his 2-year-old sister after they and their mother were swept away in a flash flood in Pennsylvania on Saturday while driving with other family members to a barbecue. According to officials, the mother's body was recovered Sunday morning.
Today, the search will continue for the 2 children who are still missing. We have search teams that are assisting us from Delaware, Chester, parts of Bucks County, New Jersey. We also have deployed K-9 units, underwater assets, air assets, and the reason we've done that is weather conditions have permitted that today. Additionally, we will use and continue the use of drones in the area, so we ask any residents that see or hear any low-flying objects, that's probably a drone. We'll have quite a few of them. As you are aware, this is going to be a massive undertaking involving the coordination and the cooperation from numerous departments and agencies throughout the state and the region.
A top Biden immigration official has called for the end of the detention of illegal immigrants and the abolishment of ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This while hundreds of migrants, mostly from Venezuela, have recently crossed from Guatemala into southern Mexico and are now headed toward the U.S. border. We asked our foreign affairs correspondent if this is really the time to end this type of border security.
I am the child of immigrants. I am very much pro-immigration, but I am pro-legal immigration. It helps people on both sides. If you think it's a humanitarian cause to have families, to have women raped on the way over here, to have them drown on the way over here, to have them being taken advantage of by coyotes and others, if you think that's humanitarian, I have news for you. You have to watch the footage from the border.
On this day in history, Disneyland opened its doors, TWA Flight 800 explodes, and Nicaragua's Somoza goes into exile. Here is Today in History for July 17th.
July 17th, 1996.
It was like a big white flash, and then all of a sudden it turned into this big orange fireball, broke off into 2 pieces.
TWA Flight 800 explodes and crashes off New York's Long Island minutes after taking off from John F. Kennedy International Airport. All 230 on board the Paris-bound flight are killed in the blast, blamed later on a fuel tank explosion, likely sparked by a short circuit in the plane's wiring. 1918. Russia's last Tsar, Nicholas II, and his family are executed by their Bolshevik captors. That happens the year after the Russian Revolution topples the monarchy from power. 1955.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land.
Entertainment giant Walt Disney opens his latest creation, the Disneyland theme park in Anaheim, California. 1979. Nicaragua's dictator Anastasio Somoza resigns and flees into exile in Miami. That paves the way for the leftist Sandinistas to take power in that Central American country. 1975. The Cold War superpowers link up in space for the first time.
Apollo Houston, I got 2 messages for you. Moscow is go for docking. Houston is go for docking. It's up to you guys. Have fun.
As an American Apollo capsule docks with a Soviet Soyuz spacecraft. 1961. Baseball Hall of Famer Ty Cobb, considered one of the game's best all-round players, dies in Atlanta, Georgia. Cobb was 74.
We do need to take a quick break, but complete weather details are coming up right away. Welcome back. It looks like we've got some hot summer days ahead of us. Lethbridge already surpassed its expected high of 30 degrees earlier this afternoon. Angela Stewart is in now with a look at the forecast. Angela, looks like we have some scorching days ahead of us. Could we maybe see some record breakers?
Yeah, so we probably won't be breaking any records this week, but it will be very hot nonetheless. We're going to be reaching those high 20s, even low 30s. That's expected for this week. Lots of sunshine ahead, so that's great news, but it is going to be very, very warm. 28 is our expected high for tomorrow, 27 for Wednesday, and then like I mentioned, those low to mid 30s for the rest of the week. 30, 33 for Thursday, Friday, and then rounding out our weekend on Saturday, Sunday, 35 and 34 is what is ahead of us. Our average high for this time of year is 26 degrees. Our average low is 11 degrees. The highest temperature was 36 degrees back in 1938. Our lowest temperature was 3 degrees back in 1999. Our sun rose at 5:42 this morning, expected to set at 9:32. That puts us at about 15 hours and exactly 50 minutes of daylight today. So temperatures across the country for Tuesday, winds and cooler temperatures near the water. Near the Juan de Fuca Strait, winds gusting to about 40 at times, and going to be feeling around like 17, 18 degrees near the water. 23 in Vancouver, going to be feeling with that humidex like 29 inland. And as we move back into Alberta, Alberta's capital, 17 degrees, so wetter conditions nonetheless in Edmonton. And that's kind of the same for Calgary, 23 there. To east of us, our friends in Saskatchewan now for Tuesday. It's pretty wet and soggy across the board as we look across Canada for tomorrow. And as for the rest of the week, Saskatoon and Regina, both going to be a chance of showers tomorrow, risk of a thunderstorm in parts. 18 degrees, 22 for Regina, and then over to the rest of the prairies, 25 in Winnipeg there. So like I mentioned, lots of rain and soggier conditions for tomorrow. And that's kind of the same for the central part of the country. Ottawa, Toronto, both 27 expected there for tomorrow. Montreal, 25 degrees. There is a risk of a thunderstorm both in Ottawa and in Montreal. But they will be getting some reprieve later on in the week, so that is great news. And then, I just keep reiterating myself here, lots of wet conditions. That's also the same for Atlantic Canada in some parts. Fredericton, though, reaching those high 20s, 28 for tomorrow. Halifax, rain, about 3 millimeters expected. 27, 28 for Charlottetown, and then 27 with that cloud coverage in St. John's for Tuesday. And that is a look at your full weather forecast.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said she's disappointed in the federal government's proposal for net zero mandates and oil and gas production cuts. This follows Federal Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault announcing he'll be publishing policy guidelines to dictate circumstances for the flow of future federal investment to Canadian oil and gas firms. In a statement, Smith called the proposed mandates unconstitutional and extremely harmful to Alberta's and Canada's economies. She says Alberta will not recognize any federally imposed emissions reduction targets for the province's energy and electricity sectors as they are under provincial jurisdiction. Well, China's economic growth missed forecasts in the second quarter of the year. The world's second largest economy grew at an annual pace of 6.3% in April through June, the April through June quarter, much slower than the 7% plus growth that analysts had forecast, given the anemic pace of activity the year before. China's economy is expected to slow even further due to slack consumer demand in China and weaker demands for China exports as other countries' post-pandemic recoveries lose momentum. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 35 points on the day to finish at 20,226. The Dow was up 76 points to 34,585. The S&P 500 was up 17 points to 4522, and the Nasdaq was down 131 points to finish at 14,224. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.27 to $74.15 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 3 cents to $2.51 US. Gold was down 17 cents to $19.5504 US an ounce, and silver was down 11 cents to $24.84 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $11.38 per bushel, barley's at $9.43, canola's at $19, and corn is at $9.95 per bushel. Live cattle were down 5 cents to $1.8013. Feeder cattle were up $2.60 to $2.4925. Lean hogs were up 38 cents to $102.35, and the Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 75.78 US.
Recapping one of our top stories today, flags at Quebec's Mont-Tremblant Resort are at half-mast a day after a gondola crash killed one man and seriously injured a woman. Both victims are from Ontario. The man has been identified as 50-year-old Sheldon Johnson. The woman, who's also in her 50s, is currently in a Montreal hospital in critical condition. Provincial police say the two were ejected from the cable car after a drilling machine hit it about halfway up the mountain at the popular tourist site. After the break, we discuss why a member of the Biden administration wants to put an end to the detention of illegal immigrants. We hear from our foreign affairs correspondent next. And hey, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. Explore the exciting and delicious downtown food scene at Foodie Fest on Tuesday, July 25th. Food trucks will gather at Galt Gardens with other amazing opportunities to enjoy the many downtown restaurants with free samples. Plus, select stores will also be open late for shopping. It'll be great fun for everyone. For more information, visit Downtown Lethbridge BRZ Facebook page. Discover a new activity that you love. All are invited to this summer's Give It a Try events, hosted by the Lethbridge Sport Council. It's a great opportunity to try your hand at a new sport like climbing, badminton, handball, and more. Events are free to attend. Register in advance by visiting lethbridgesportcouncil.ca/program/give it a try. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.